Fear is taking away our sovereignty. Fear is taking away our power. But it's not so much fear, it's the power that we are giving to fear. It's the credibility that we are giving to the unknown. You see, there's something special about the unknown. There's something special about leaning into the mystery of life. The issue is that because we don't know and we fear the unknown, we become almost unstable in our movement. We pluck at straws. We try and rationalize. We try and understand everything that's happening in our world, as opposed to just sitting back and observing just for a moment. See, we live in this fast-paced world where it's not enough to just sit back and observe and apply critical thinking or lateral thinking and even just feeling. And combining the two, combining our emotions, what our emotional responses are, combining that with our analytical thinking. You see, we're so driven by the past, we don't even know it. Every time that we are experiencing intense or amplified fear from something that is happening in the present moment, I'm not referring to that physical danger, I'm talking about psychological and emotional fear. When we are experiencing this, it is amplified by past unresolved events. What does that mean? We've experienced trauma or pain, suffering, wounding, a disconnection in relationship, a moment or series of moments of lowered self-worth, where we have felt unsafe in our psychological and emotional body. We've mapped that and marked that in our brains and in our minds. And so anytime something occurs that is familiar to that experience, maybe it's an element of unfamiliarity, maybe it's the way a person is looking at us, maybe it's the clothes that they're wearing, it's by association, the amygdala is activated. All of a sudden, the lateral nucleus of the amygdala is speaking with the prefrontal cortex, is communicating with the central nucleus of the amygdala, is communicating with the rest of the body. We're releasing adrenaline, we're releasing cortisol. We're in a fear state, and it amplifies the present moment. It makes it quote unquote worse than what it actually is or needs to be. And until we clear up those events of the past that have impacted us significantly, we get stuck in this fear cycle. And so when anything similar or familiar occurs in our environment, once again, we go back to the old, we bring the past into the present. And what happens? The present is infected by the past. It's not really a completely accurate account of what is happening in the world right now for you. And so the quickest way, the most effective way to deal with fear, psychological, emotional fear, maybe it's even fear in relationship. Maybe as a child you were abandoned by one of your parents and you carry that abandonment wound in relationship. And so you'll quote unquote self-sabotage relationships, or you'll be in a hyper-protective place in your adult intimate relationships. This distances people, this isolates you, this causes people to not be able to trust you, to not be vulnerable with you, and you not to be vulnerable with them. And so until we clear up those core wounds, we get stuck in that same old fear cycle. And the brain loves repetition because it's familiar. You know, my wife says something really interesting. You know, when you have a thin gold chain and it gets all knotted up and you're trying to unknot all the knots, it's until you get to that core chain, that one that almost holds every other knot, that then all the other knots release. That's what childhood wounding is like. When we experience fear, wounding, trauma during our developmental years, it stays with us. It's a core wound, and until we heal that core wound, we suffer greatly and we suffer deeply. Heal that old stuff to not bring it into the present so that you can live a life of freedom and openness. Power and blessings. I'll see you soon.